evening, everyone, and welcome to Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner. This is episode number 221, The Vikings, the classic 1958 historical fiction film. Tonight we are taking a step out of sci-fi and taking a look at historical fiction to do something a little bit different, a little bit fun. And with me tonight to discuss this classic from the 1950s is my friend and my co-host, Mr. Ross Amico. Ross, welcome.
Odin! There were some fantasy elements in this movie.
Yeah, there were. Definitely.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing, Ross?
Doing well. Now, you're watching for that guy from Hell, Norway tonight, right?
Yeah, I am. I got my eyes open for
You don't want him popping in here.
The Nordic Meisters. Hey, want to welcome our guests, or actually our viewers out there who are like our guests. I see up first is Colin Corliss joining us from the UK. Welcome, Colin. And he's responding and saying, Odin! And I see Matt is in the house. Greetings, fellas. I hope that everyone has a sword in hand. We are ready, Matt. Christian is actually joining us from Canada. Welcome, Christian. And I should have said Matt is joining us from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Sorry, Matt. And Jeff Rubel is also joining us. He is joining us from Utah out west. Welcome, Jeff. Good to see you out there. And Claudia is out there, and she's joining us from West Virginia. Hey, Claudia. Thanks for being out there.
She said she loved this movie. I saw it on your page.
Yes. And Sue is out there joining us from Massachusetts. Welcome, Sue. And the Shadow is here. Hey, Chris. Chris is joining us from Florida. Welcome, Chris. Great to see you out there. Chris also really enjoyed this movie as well, too. He was commenting about it. Colin is saying the ice is slippery. So anyway, yeah, welcome, everyone. Oh, Martin is out there also. He's joining us from New York. Welcome, Martin. Good to see you out there. Hope you're doing well. This film was a Ross pick, folks, and let me tell you, it was a good pick on his part. I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I was a little hesitant because we were talking about this film and we were talking about something else, which I think I blocked out. Poor Ross. It's just that
I've been pushing this one for a year. At
least. Chris says the sun is shining. That's good. Christian is saying, believe it or not, Ross, I only saw the Vikings once as a kid, late 60s, early 70s, never since.
Wow. Okay.
Well, Christian, I'll come clean. I never saw this film before. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. And what a stellar cast. I mean, you got Kirk Douglas, you got Tony Curtis, you had Ernest Borgnine, you have Janet Leigh, just, with top billing for this film. I mean, a lot of powerhouses in this movie. Yeah. And interesting enough about Tony Curtis, I mean, he had not been acting all that long when he did this film. This was,
close to 10 years, but he didn't really have, he wasn't a superstar yet.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, again, we'll go through it.
Yeah, he had only, I think, hit his first big, got his first big notice for The Sweet Smell of Success the year before. But he had been in movies for 9 years at that point. He had actually been,
he definitely had been doing it. And he went out to Hollywood, like you said, 10 years earlier, 1948. And he was that kid from the Bronx that, he was 23 years old when he went out there and he did not want to fail. And did you read that when he went out there to California, Jack Warner, who was like the studio head, I think, of Warner Brothers, was on the plane with him?
Oh, okay. No.
I thought that was pretty interesting. It's like, talk about, meeting up with somebody, that's pretty high up on the food chain of
he took a lot of razzing for his accent, but I think they wisely kept him pretty monosyllabic in this film. He had he would mutter a line now and then. There was none of that "Yonder lies the castle of my fada" that everybody always jokes about.
Yeah, he didn't sound like he was John from New York,
And then, of course, after this, he became like Tony Curtis. He was in Operation Petticoat and Some Like It Hot, and
with Jack Lemmon, right? It's on
yeah. So he was
yeah.
doing a lot of stuff.
And I think this was his fourth film with Janet Leigh, his wife at the time, then too, which is
yeah. This one's closest, I think, to there's one that came after it called Taras Bulba, which is based on a Ukrainian folk hero. That's kind of an epic adventure like that with a lot of swords and you know, grandeur and tragedy and everything that's in this movie. They kind of tried to you know, recapture lightning in a bottle with that one, with Yul Brynner, by the way.
Oh, yep, there you go. And that would have been right around the time that he did, because The King and I think was late 50s, 57, 56, 57 was probably
Yul was huge then too. Yeah, he plays Tony's dad in the movie.
Oh, there you go. Martin is saying the film was always on Sundays as a Sunday matinee on ATV over in England. The good old days, Colin is saying. Chris commented that was only Curtis's second time with Kirk Douglas. He also was in Spartacus. Right, Chris. And that would be in 1960, I believe. It was only a couple of years later. And I guess they made the deal too, since, you know, folks, I'm going to give you spoilers tonight. So if you haven't seen the film, you know, here's your opportunity to bail out. But, you know, again, this is like a 64-year-old film. Tony Curtis obviously does not, well, no, not obviously. Tony Curtis does not die in this film, but since Kirk Douglas does, then the decision, I guess, was made that Tony Curtis would take the sword, so to speak, in Spartacus. So it was like a trade-off. So spoiler alert there.
Yeah, they may have made that deal in fun. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's true.
Yes, the Black Shield of Falworth. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one with the, you know, Castle of Myfada line that they always attribute. Yeah.
Hey, Lou. Lou's joining us from Rhode Island. Good to see you out there, Lou. Thanks for joining us. And Shari's out there. Hi, hon. She's saying, hey, guys, listening to in Easton, PA. We'll be home in about an hour to listen downstairs. I never saw this movie. Are you going to watch it with me, Roy? Is there a shower scene? Lots of laughs.
Nobody showers in this movie. They shower in mead.
They are in the water, actually.
Yeah, that's true. Some people fall overboard over the dragon boats. Yeah.
Hey, Catherine is out there. Hey, Catherine. She's saying, I wish I could be there with you to clear up the timelines, the myths, as far as we know they are myths, Curtis's career, the movies, etc., and have a lively discussion.
Yeah. Like he never actually said that line that he always got razzed about. There was a line they twisted from the Falworth movie, where they made fun of his accent. I think it might have been Doris Day who did it first. I forget, but it caught on, of course. I wanted to tell you the first time I saw this movie was this is one movie I wish I had seen on the big screen.
Yeah,
you know, I've seen a lot of I've been lucky enough to see a lot of classics on the big screen, so I can kind of put my mind there, you know, and kind of adjust my expectations. But you know, it's not the same as actually, you know, seeing it on the big screen. And you know, I've seen Lawrence of Arabia and you know, any number of like big films on big screens. But the first time I saw this was in high school. We had a class, I've mentioned this before, called mythology. There was a fantasy and science fiction class on one side of the hallway, and on the other side was mythology. And if you had like AP courses or something like that, these were electives you could take as a senior. So Mr. Conahan was on one side, and we would read you know, books like, you know, Dashiell Hammett's Maltese Falcon, and then we'd watch the movie, and then we'd have to write papers about them. Or there'd be essay questions on an exam, you know, but really, you know, it's just an excuse to go in and watch cool movies, you know, and even things that weren't based on books like King Kong, we would analyze them like we would fiction, you know, like written fiction, and get to do that stuff. And The Quiet Man, of course, which had nothing to do with science fiction or fantasy, but Mr. Conahan loved it. So, and across the hallway was Mr. Jankowitz, and they would just like stand there between classes and like heckle each other and insult one another. But Mr. Jankowitz always dressed as a mythological character, and I'm sure I must have a photo somewhere. But from the high school yearbook from 1984, here is Mr. Jank, and over here is a caricature of Jank in his Viking outfit.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Because for extra credit, like kids would, you know, they build them the whole like Egyptian throne room. You would sit there in a throne with the hieroglyphs on it, and sit there with the crook and flail, the symbols of Upper and Lower Egypt, and he'd have the headdress. But that's how he'd teach the class, and then he would show us movies. So when we did Norse mythology, we watched the Vikings, and we got to, pick out what was historically correct at the time, what they thought was historically correct, and all the mythological references. But I loved the movie from the first time I saw it. I mean, I can't forget the music for the film, that theme that plays through the movie.
The music is incredible. And I think there was somebody that was commenting about that on the page, and I apologize if I'm forgetting who it was. And yeah, it really, it's very gripping. And this is definitely a film I wish I had seen on the big screen as well. And it's interesting. You're talking about your class, Ross, and you're saying that was 1984. So it was only like at the time 26 years earlier that this movie had come out.
That's what I'm saying. And the interesting thing is that you watch this movie and you get that sense of freedom and grandeur and wide open spaces, because they actually filmed it on the fjords there in Norway, in Hardanger, Norway. But it was kind of a template that was still in use for adventure films in the 70s and 80s. When we were growing up, you went to see movies all the time that kind of made you feel like that. And it's not that the Vikings originated that, but it was of that era when they're still making those movies, as opposed to now where everything's kind of like claustrophobic and neurotic. And you know what I mean? There's like no sense of unlimited possibility or wide open vistas anymore. It's all like we're trapped and it's a dystopia. And
I'm gonna retract you and myself out of the screen, just because this is an image I used for our background, just so everybody can see it clearly, because our images are blocking it. So I'm gonna take you out for like 10 seconds, and I'm gonna take myself out for 10 seconds. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Just like being there, Roy.
Just like being there.
and Jack Cardiff's cinematography is just it's just crazy it's beautiful, breathtaking. Thank you. And you got to think, in 1958 there weren't that many opportunities, unless you actually went there to see anything of that caliber. I mean, you couldn't see it on a TV set. You look at a National Geographic magazine or something, but it's not the same as the opulent visuals in this movie.
It reminded me, I mean, it's a different location, but his optics, I'll say, almost remind me of, like, was it Jeffrey Unsworth that did Superman?
Yeah.
It was on like that caliber. I mean, obviously it's different. It's a different location, but it was just, it's just,
right. He did.
Yeah.
The wheat fields.
The wheat fields.
that sort of
exactly.
Thing. But these guys were legends. I mean, Jack Cardiff worked with everybody. He worked with Powell and Pressburger. He did the Red Shoes movie. He did Black Narcissus, which is another beautiful movie. But they shot that entire movie. It's set in the Himalayas, but they shot the whole thing on a soundstage in England. And it's like, what? How did you make it look like that?
What? How?
It's one of those beautiful movies to look at. Yeah, he was a magician, and he worked with Alfred Hitchcock. He worked with John Huston. He did The African Queen. So, and then like later in life, he was doing like all of these guys. It's like they're legends, and then they wind up doing what did he do? He did Rambo. Sylvester Stallone, and even worse than that. Conan the Destroyer.
Sure. Oh, geez.
Well, they teamed up.
That was with Arnie, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, it was the second Conan movie, and
it wasn't the first.
And Fleischer directed that. The guy, Richard Fleischer, who directed that. It's like, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah.
But I guess you follow the work.
Exactly. When we showed the photo, Chris said that was beautiful. Matt is not behaving. He said, best part of the show, Roy, take yourselves out again. Easy, Matt. Matt's trying to get on the B list again.
Yeah. I thought we were getting out early myself, but
Martin.
Yes.
Martin, commented.
Yeah, The Long Ships came out. In fact, Jack Cardiff, who did the cinematography for this movie, directed The Long Ships, which had Richard Widmark and Russ Tamblyn as Vikings, if you can believe it. Even less believable than Kirk Douglas and Tony Curtis. It's like, how can we push it even further? Richard Widmark and Russ Tamblyn. And they team up with with Sidney Poitier
Oh,
in North Africa.
You know what I thought was interesting too? This because I mean, Kirk Douglas produced this film. I mean, he had a production company,
Yeah.
and this was like a dream of his. I mean, he was 40. He's playing a guy that's supposed to be in his 20s, and he's actually 40 years old when this film was being made. But this was like a dream to play a Viking, so it's something that he always wanted to do, and he got to do it, with this film.
Yeah, he produced a lot of his. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Christian Comment said African Queen Studio shots at Shepperton Studio in England after all those locations in Africa.
Right.
Just commenting. Go ahead, Ross.
No, I was going to say, Douglas used that company as kind of a I don't want to say vanity project, but it allowed him to develop his own projects.
Yeah.
And a lot of them turned out to be classics and were award winners. So he knew what he was doing. But I didn't realize they also did Something Wicked This Way Comes from the 80s.
Did not catch that.
Yeah, because usually he was in the movies, but he wasn't in that one.
Interesting. We saw that. I think that was what, 83. It was either 81, 82, or 83. And that was at the Easton Eric. We saw that. The Bond villain was in that. My God.
Oh, yeah. It was Jonathan Price.
Thank you. Yes.
That's the first time I'd seen him, actually. And then he was in a lot of stuff, of course, Brazil. And
same
now
here.
Now he's in everything. Yeah. The Two Popes, The Crown. What's the one in Game of Thrones? He's in everything.
Catherine commented, "There's a silent film in color called The Vikings, starring Donald Crisp in 1928." A classic.
I saw that on TCM. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a fun genre, the Viking movie. This, for my money, even though it's not it's a very satisfying, fun, beautiful movie that I hold very close to my heart. I don't think it's like a 4-star timeless classic. But I could watch it again and again and again. So maybe on some level it is, but yeah, I still think it's the most satisfying Viking film I've ever seen.
This is probably the first Viking film I've seen, actually. So I
apologies to Donald Crisp. Yeah,
I'm actually off to a good start with that.
But
going back to Chris's comments in regards to what Sherry said about the shower scene, Chris wrote, Janet Leigh does get her dress ripped out of, but there is no shower scene.
Yeah, you get a nice shot of her back. Yeah.
Claudia said, "No, but there are axes and pigtails."
and wenching.
And Roy, have you seen Spartacus with your wife? No, I have not. We'll probably be watching that when we discuss that in the next historical fictional film.
Roy likes both oysters and snails. Yeah. But so I think Donald Crisp did have the horns in that movie. I think the Vikings did have the horns. This one didn't have the horns because historically it was comedy laugh. Yeah. What did it say about Octopussy? I didn't see.
Oh, sorry. Let me go back. Conan the Destroyer was a comedy. Laughed my ass off. Octopussy came out of the same year. It was the Summer of Laughs. Yeah, that was 83. That's right.
Yeah, totally unexpected. Well, the first one had some laughs too, but boy, was it violent.
Let me see.
Oh, screenwriting. Well, let's see. Just found this. Make sure you share that. It will be shared. You already shared it. So I'll look it up later, Colin, to see what they have to say.
Thanks, Colin.
Apparently, there's a recent Viking TV series that I knew was on. It might be on Netflix or something. I can't, but I never watched it because it just looked like a bunch of it's gritty and filthy, and I don't feel like dealing with it. But apparently, Ragnar is the lead. The Ernest Borgnine character, because he was a character from the sagas, the old Icelandic sagas. But so apparently they based the TV series also on the same character. But don't expect Ernest Borgnine. I can't guarantee that I'll even watch it, but I'm sure.
It was funny because when I started watching this film the other day, and it was very, very late, and I didn't even catch that was Ernest Borgnine at first, and I was like, and I should have, and he really did a great job with his character and everything. Everything came together.
They made him shave for McHale's Navy.
Yeah. Well, and that would have been... Well, he was actually in the movie McHale's Navy, and then he did the TV series, too.
Right, the earlier movie, because then later Kelsey Grammer did the movie. There was another movie.
Yep.
Which we all would do well to forget, I think.
I didn't even see it. It doesn't surprise me. I like Kelsey Grammer, but it doesn't surprise me. They try to remake the classics, and 9 out of 10 times they hit it. They just miss. So.
You need Tim Conway.
He needs Tim Conway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see here.
So it was actually based on a novel by Edison Marshall, who was a writer who was employed with the Saturday Evening Post and another magazine I hadn't heard of. Maybe I forget if it's American Magazine or something. But he wrote for the pulps. He wrote a lot of adventure stories, science fiction, and there's your sci-fi connection, Roy.
Oh, there you go. And that book came out in what, early 50s, right? Like 51 or so?
Yeah. And he was a war veteran. He was in the First World War. He'd lost his thumb in a hunting accident prior to the war. So I don't know what he did in the war. You know, obviously he probably was not in combat, I don't think, with one thumb, but but he managed to type with 9 fingers or I guess what is it? It's well, he had his 8 fingers and a thumb is what he had.
Oh, okay.
To type. He could hit the shift key, I guess, with the thumb he had.
Well, there you go.
But the novel in turn was based on this Icelandic saga about Ragnar and his sons. In fact, the character was Ragnar Lodbrok, which apparently translates as Ragnar Hairy Trousers.
You know, it's interesting when I was reading about that and about his adventures. I guess for this film, they took some liberties to make some changes. I think when he falls into the pit, it wasn't the killer wolves. It was it snakes?
Vipers.
Or vipers. Yeah.
Which is interesting. They made that change because in the 1939 Gunga Din with Cary Grant and Victor McLaughlin and Douglas Fairbanks Jr., they do have a snake pit that looks great, you know, and that's they're going to get thrown into that snake pit. Of course, you know, the villain's going to wind up in the snake pit in the end.
Right.
But yeah, it's like that with the wolves. But, you know, wolves play such an important part in Scandinavian mythology that they probably went with that instead. You know, because the Fenris wolf was supposed to one day devour his sons. The sons of the Fenris wolf were going to devour the sun and the moon. And the Fenris wolf himself, I think, devours Odin, you know, for during Ragnarok, when everything comes to an end. So the Nordic people were very pessimistic.
What are you saying, Ross?
So you kind of get that in this movie too. You know, it's like, you know, you can have a victory, but at a cost.
Yeah, there's a lot of darkness in this movie. It's not a very happy film. I mean, it's not. I mean,
it makes me happy, but yeah, there is a lot of violence and a lot of bad stuff that happens to people.
It's surprising too. I mean, it takes a lot of different turns if you haven't seen this film, but it's very entertaining, though, to say the least. Catherine commented. She said, "Little known fact: Jack Cardiff was both director and cameraman on an Errol Flynn movie that was to be called William Tell. The film was shot in northern Italy in the Alps. A village was built. 6 weeks on location were shot. The money ran out. That is, his Italian backers backed out. The project was closed down. 15 minutes of edit footage exists. Roddy McDowell had a print." Wow.
Yeah. And it was such a, it was supposed to be Flynn's comeback movie, you know, because he was like washed up at that point. But yeah, on YouTube, there is something on there. I forget if it's a trailer that they have put together to kind of try to sell a film or what it is. But yeah, it's one of my great sadnesses that William Tell never got completed. I forgot that Jack Cardiff was involved with that. I had one of those pulpy magazines. You remember they used to have like, I don't know if it was Fantastic Film or if it was, it was that kind of thing. Where it had the glossy cover, but the inside was kind of pulpy.
Cinema Fantastique, maybe?
Yeah, I think that one had glossy pages, though. I can't remember. But yeah, I had the whole thing about William Tell in there, and that would be one of those things like, just like there's a Lost Marx Brothers movie. You know, one of
the early, really?
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, there's an early Marx Brothers movie that doesn't exist anymore that I'm hoping will turn up someday. But it might be before they're in character, though. I don't think they have the, Harpo Groucho thing down yet.
That makes it even that much more appealing, though. So that's really cool. Yeah. I know that lost footage we always hope will surface for whether it be a television show or for a film. It's
every few years they find more footage for Metropolis. Metropolis keeps getting longer and longer. And Napoleon, Abel Gantz's Napoleon, which Catherine mentioned on your Facebook page. I think the director's cut was 9 hours and 40 minutes.
Oh my God.
And when I saw it was 4.5 hours in the 80s.
Wow.
And now I think they've got it up to something like 7 hours again. So,
wow. Hey, Linda, thanks for joining us. She's saying, oh my God, I'm convinced today is Saturday and wasn't sure why this was on. Lots of laughs. I don't know the start time anymore, so I hope I haven't missed a chunk of Roy's tie-dye sci-fi corner discussion of one of my favorite movies.
oh,
No,
man.
you're fine, Linda. We start at 7 o'clock on Fridays Eastern Standard Time, and then on select Sundays, usually at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
She got thrown off by President's Day, being a Canadian and all. Yeah.
But we're glad you're out there, Linda. Hope you're doing well. Joining us from Canada.
Monday was a federal holiday here in the States, so
Yeah.
we were all screwed up this week.
Chris said Ernest Candle's in the reboot as well.
Ernest Candle's in the reboot?
And then he just said, oh, He-Boys Hate Me. Cameron the reboot. Cameron.
Oh, Cameron? James
Yeah.
Cameron? Someone's bitten off by a falcon.
I still like Noggin the Nog. Now there's a bit
because Cameron Mitchell was in a Viking movie. I don't know. I'm confused. What's this? Nog Bad the Bad.
And the Hague is out there. Hey John, thanks for joining us. He's saying Ragnog, brother of Fragile Rock.
Fragile Rock. There you go.
Fragile Rock. Or Hagar the Horrible. Hagar the Horrible, I remember.
Yeah. Hagar the Horrible.
I used to like that comic strip. Hey, Randy's joining us. Hey, Randy. He's saying, if I wasn't in a bar, I'd be attending your Friday Festival of Fun. No, have a drink for us, Randy. Yeah. Enjoy. Thanks for stopping on to say hi, though.
Yeah, it says something that he bothered to check in. So that's
nice. No, it was nice that you're out there.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. It's okay, Chris. Don't worry about it. No worries. I'm just not sure what you meant. So if you want to retype it, please do.
Yeah. Everybody's welcome except that guy from Hell, Norway.
My God, that was what? That was like 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago.
Bring on the chat girls. Yeah.
Yeah, and the chat. Oh my God.
And let the mead flow.
Ross. Oh my goodness. We're gonna go to a commercial break. We'll be right back while I have a discussion with Ross.
I'm in the penalty box again.
Anyway, just to show some members of the cast, of course, we have Kirk Douglas.
Right.
Kill.
He took no salary for the film, but it was his production company. But he took a percentage of the profits, so he got 60% of the film's profits, which was, back then it was $3 million, which back then was a huge. I mean, I take $3 million now, but in 1958, that was real money.
This film did very well,
and I have to say, he's cast as kind of the villain. He's the antagonist. But he has redemptive qualities. I mean, there's a charm about him, even though he's a creep.
Yeah.
Do you get that sense? I mean, he's kind of. On some level, he manages to be sympathetic, and it's also like the part is the biggest. He's to be a showboat, because Kirk Douglas was always a showboat. It's all about look at me and his physical fitness, and it's like I can run on the oars, I can ride bareback, I can climb the battle axes, up the side of the castle.
He honestly looked like he was just. I mean, it's like you said. I mean, it's his. We were talking about it. It's his movie, but he actually looked like he was having a lot of fun filming this movie.
Yeah, he steals the movie. Yeah. And he's the bad guy.
And he's the bad guy.
And somehow we love him, even though he's a jerk. As is so often the case with Kirk Douglas. It's his persona. Maybe.
He did over 90 films, Ross, in his career. Yeah. It's crazy. And
look to be 103.
I know. I mean, that in itself is amazing.
Yeah.
His first film was with Barbara Stanwyck. It was
it was Martha Ivers. Was that The Three Loves of Martha? Which one do I?
No, it was this. The Strange Love of Martha Ivers.
Strange Love of Martha Ivers. I'm thinking Story of Three Wives. Yeah. I remember because he's listening to Brahms in the movie, and there's a conversation about the record he has, and he's talking about Brahms' First Symphony or something. I can't remember which Brahms piece it is, but yeah. And he's already Kirk Douglas basically at that point. He's already got the magnet. He's got the magnetism. He's not chewing the scenery too bad and climbing battle axes or anything, but he's got presence.
No, he definitely did. No questions about it. I was trying to remember. Did we cover Saturn III?
We have not, but we've alluded to it many times. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that movie. In fact, Suzanne, friend of the show, friend also, was Farrah Fawcett's stand-in for that movie.
Yeah,
Suzanne Heimer. She got to work with her, and she said she was very, very nice, and she had nice things to say about Kirk Douglas too. So
yeah, I was not real fond of the movie, but I wouldn't mind doing it.
Yeah, we'll have to revisit that. I think that would be kind of fun to talk about with her too. So anyway, we're kind of going off the beaten path here.
Yeah, well, it's more sci-fi than this is. You know what the sci-fi is in this movie? It's the Van Heflin, right? The sci-fi in this movie is Strangelove and Martha Ivers, correct?
And Claudia said he was a Navy veteran from World War II.
Yeah, he lived quite a life. Yeah.
Yeah.
The sci-fi element, I think, was the compass.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It predicted the compass. Well, I guess from our perspective, it wasn't predicted, but it was before the compass was in circulation. The Vikings had it. Tony Curtis had it. I wonder if that's why he was given it by the seer. He didn't bring it from Italy. He was given it by the woman with the runes.
There's mysticism in this movie for sure.
There is. And they call out to Odin and the Valkyries, and they allude to the different, and it's very well done because the other people around them who don't believe, they say, "Oh, all I hear is the wind" or whatever. It's like, no, it's Odin's daughters, the Valkyries. I can hear their armor and the horses, and yeah. So
Matt commented. He said, "Just reading that Frank Thring, who played King Ale, also played the Collector in Mad Max."
Yeah, it was one of his late films. Frank Thring was always the guy they went to get the supercilious, decadent, debauched ruler in every epic back then. He was in Ben-Hur, he was in King of Kings, he was in El Cid. He was just a familiar face, and he was always like. Deign to kiss my ring kind of thing.
Yeah, no, he played that to the hilt in this.
Yeah.
Oh, Claudia just commented, "Long live Hagar. Chris Brown, the cartoonist, passed away last year. I'm on the Facebook page." Wow. I did not know that. Ouch. Yeah, so many folks have passed. Catherine commented, she said, 2 of Kirk's best films, Ace in the Hole, Billy Wilder film, and The Bad and the Beautiful, Vincent Minnelli film.
Yeah, and again, he plays a jerk in both movies, and yet you're riveted. It was his persona. It's a really weird thing to be famous for, but people loved Kirk Douglas. Yeah.
Chris also wrote this on the Facebook page. The Viking sword fight at the end was animated in The Secret of Nim.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Chris.
I still haven't seen that movie.
Catherine wrote, "Kirk and Burt Lancaster are always wonderful in their films together. In the industry, they were referred to as the Terrible Two. Can you imagine why?" Yeah, well said.
And great rivals, friends and rivals. Yeah,
friends and rivals.
Paths of Glory, Lust for Life. They did a movie together called The Devil's Disciple that was based on a George Bernard Shaw play, and they show it sometimes on the 4th of July on TCM, and I like that movie quite a bit. Kirk is kind of a rogue and a trapper, and Burt Lancaster's like the clergyman, and they go, they have conflicting ideas about the revolution and what side they should, what they should be doing, and Olivier plays Gentleman Johnny Burgoyne, the general. So it's a fun movie.
When was that produced, Ross?
Late 50s, maybe early 60s.
Oh, okay.
I remember Richard Rodney Bennett did the music. The guy who did 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and more recently. But yeah, when Burt finally snaps, it's worth it. When he takes up the American cause.
Catherine said 1959. Thanks for sharing, Catherine. Hey, Michelle is out there. Michelle, welcome. Michelle's joining us from Connecticut. Good to see you out there, Michelle.
Mhm.
And Chris just said Kirk played twin brothers in The Man from Snowy River.
Hmm.
And the Hague just said, loved Kirk and Lonely Are the Brave, early, if not first appearance of Carol O'Connor. Oh,
Ah. And
good
that's,
tidbit.
Jerry Goldsmith did the music for that. Speaking of Carol O'Connor, the the people who live in the in UK would appreciate that Dandy Nichols was in this movie, and it doesn't mean anything to me except for the fact that she was one of the leads in the long running television series there called Till Death Do Us Part, which was remade as All in the Family. Yeah, with Carol O'Connor. But I've never seen the show. So it was only in looking through the bios of all the actors, it's like, oh my goodness, she would be a familiar face to those.
That's a kind of cool connection. It's funny you're mentioning that show, Ross, because at the end of the end credits of All in the Family, they always gave a mention to that it was,
did they? They give credit, yeah.
That it was based on that, yeah.
Yeah. Because she was like the lady in waiting or whatever to Janet Leigh in the film.
Right.
But it's not a big part, but yeah.
He was also great with John Wayne in Harm's Way.
And he's in the War Wagon too with John Wayne.
Oh, really?
Are we talking about Kirk Douglas? Is that what we're doing? Yeah.
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 And I wanted to share two things that I was trying to think. Well, actually, I was trying to think of we like to say all roads lead to Star Trek with this film. And as far as like a direct connection, there really wasn't. But then as I was thinking about the characters of the Vikings, I was thinking, you know what? In a lot of ways, it reminded me of the Klingons, how they were honorable. They wanted to die with a sword in hand, and they wanted to die in battle. And I just thought, there's that kind of connection with the Klingons, at least, especially with Star Trek, starting like with Star Trek: The Next Generation, about the whole with honor. They kind of like modified the Klingons from what they were in the original series, I'll say, and then going forward. But it was just something that kind of stuck. And then also the other thing being the other Star Trek connection, and again it's kind of indirect, goes back to Kirk Douglas, in which he's got the plastic eye, so to speak, and it reminded me of like Gary Mitchell from Where No Man Has Gone Before, when Gary Lockwood had to wear those contact lenses that were so painful, and evidently this one was also very painful for Kirk Douglas during the filming, and he really couldn't keep it in for long periods of time. And imagine having your entire eye covered by something like that. And
early contact lens stuff. I mean, Lon Chaney was always doing stuff like that decades earlier. The senior, back in the silence, he was always doing awful things to himself.
Yeah.
But you always hear about stuff like that. People that do that, they can only do it for a few minutes at a time, and then they can't get it off because of the suction, and you have to be careful. You got to scratch the cornea, and all roads lead to All in the Family.
There you go.
Always.
Christian said there's a lesser-known film of Kirk Douglas, The Sicilian Brothers. It's a very good film, the 1969, I think, and it's almost the same story as The Godfather. Oh, interesting.
I haven't seen that.
And Chris said Kirk played a real creep in Harm's Way with John Wayne and Carol. Yes, Karen O'Connor is in that one as well.
Yeah.
And the Vikings were more Klingons than the Klingons. Yeah. Well said, Chris.
That's so true.
But it's true, though. I mean, with Colin saying when Klingons are in their blood wine and their frenzies, that's really Viking stuff. Yeah, it just really reminded me of that. When they're, kapaw. Chris is saying Chaney, the man of 1,000 faces.
Man of 1,000 faces, correct.
Hey, Deborah, thanks for joining us. Deborah's joining us from Phillipsburg.
Hey, Deborah.
Welcome. Yeah, so we have that. And I also wanted to show just some photos. One, of course, of Janet Leigh, and she was Morgana. And then also James Donald as Egbert. And, obviously, in regards to Janet Leigh, she had a very long career. I was very surprised, though. She died not too old of an age, though. She was, I think, only like 77. She was around 30 years old when she did this film. She was very young.
Well, 77 back back in the day was, I mean, we expect older now, but
Right.
yeah, it is. It's still, young. And of course, the mother of Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis. Yeah.
Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh.
And they also have another daughter, which I wasn't aware of,
Yeah.
Kelly Curtis, that made her film debut in this movie.
Right.
She was in this. Hey, Jenny's joining us. Jenny, welcome. And Jenny's joining us from Australia. Hi, Jenny. Thanks for being out there. Yes, tomorrow is yesterday, or for you, yesterday is tomorrow.
Now Egbert, he's the conniver, and he's playing both sides, and he's angling for an advantage. He's always looking for an advantage, and he kind of drops out of the movie. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's through the whole movie. He's gonna do this, do that, and you expect like some kind of resolution with him. And I had to look up the character. He's a historical character. He actually succeeds Aella as king of Northumbria. He's propped up by the Vikings. He's their
figurehead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's kind of like he's allowed to rule, as long as the Vikings can do whatever they want, basically, that kind of thing. Otherwise, they'll throw him in the wolf pit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was expecting more from his character. I was waiting for something. I don't know what it was. I was just waiting for something else to happen. And to your point, It's like he just kind of drops off, and it's like, and he seems integral at the beginning of the movie too.
Yeah, he's a champion intriguer. We've seen enough of these castle intrigues, down the decades, that we know what to expect with somebody like that. But yeah, it never really comes to anything.
Yeah,
except historically, I guess. But the vengeance, there's a lot of violence in this movie. I mean, for 1958, we look at it now and it's like, pretty tame stuff compared to what we see when we turn on the television or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But for 58, for a family movie, because it wouldn't have had an R rating, it would have been for all audiences. It's pretty rough. A lot of it's suggested, but I mean, you have arm loppings, you have eyes gouged, you have people thrown into wolf pits.
No, and as this was happening, it's like after one event would happen like that, I was like, whoa, they actually did that. Like I was like totally surprised that happened to Kirk Douglas at the beginning of the film, where his face gets ripped apart, and then the next thing you know and I'm thinking his eye is going to be gone from that, because I mean that it was was it a hawk or a
falcon?
The falcon attacked him.
I can't remember.
Yeah, Sherry's a birder too, so she would have been to have seen that.
I don't know if it was a falcon or a hawk actually, but
anyway, I mean, it was just like so violent. And the funny thing is, Rhaegar was going on about how he wanted to didn't want a beard, and he wanted to keep clean shaven, to show off his like his masculinity. And then the next thing his face is getting ripped apart.
Yeah, which is kind of funny, because all the Vikings are so hirsute. They have the big beards and they're hairy, and then Kirk Douglas shows up and he's got the dimpled chin, and it's like, all right, who's the producer here? It's just everything's done to make Kirk look good, but then he gets all mangled up anyway.
Colin said I had 51. Yeah, I did, Colin. Thanks for that. I changed it. Scott is joining us. Welcome, Scott. Thanks for being out there. He's saying, hey guys, really enjoyed the character. Katala, played by Eileen Way. She played a similar role on Doctor Who in 1979. Doctor Who. I missed that. Good catch, Scott. There's a sci-fi element right there too, and all roads leading to Doctor Who.
I didn't see the episode, but I read that she was involved with that. Yeah, she was the one that was casting the runes, which now we have the compass, which looks ahead to future technology. But you also have the runes, which are kind of the precursor to the magic 8 ball.
Yes. Oh my God, that magic 8 ball. Oh wow.
Back then you had to ask the runes, but now we just ask the magic 8 ball.
Yeah, they did, Chris.
Yeah, it's pretty face.
The magic 8 ball. Whatever happened to that? Did you ever get one of those, Ross?
Oh yeah, I had a magic 8 ball. Didn't you have didn't everybody have a magic 8 ball?
Maybe I had one once.
At some point. I mean, they always wind up breaking in the end because you would abuse them.
Wasn't that bad luck?
I think my Ouija board got it. No, I never had a Ouija board, but I was afraid of Captain Howdy.
Yeah, there you go. Chris says he still has one.
The he still has the magic 8 ball. Good, yeah.
Give us a prediction about the show, Chris.
No.
I see the suits in close proximity.
It's faded. It really is Nordic. It's faded. We're all fated to doom. We must fight valiantly to meet our fates.
Sword in hand.
Sword in hand. That's right. Well, that's how you get into Valhalla. Yeah.
I dressed for the occasion, Ross.
There you go. Okay.
I went dark.
Is that Nordic tie-dye? Is that what that is?
It's Nordic tie-dye, yeah.
Yeah. Is that where the wolf fangs got you?
Yeah, exactly.
The Fenris wolf. Yeah, and the Orson Welles does the narration at the beginning of the film. I don't know if you recognize his voice or not.
I did, and I should have made mention of him in the
the world, yeah. The ocean, yeah.
Yeah, no, very distinct voice and everything, and yeah.
And those images were taken from the Bayeux Tapestry, which really tells the story of the Norman conquest, which actually came after this film. I think is set in the 9th century, and the Norman conquest is 1066. But I didn't draw the connection until just today, because the Vikings were everywhere. You know, they were just a great sailing people, despite the fact that this movie had them getting lost in fog banks all the time. They seemed to get everywhere. You know, they made it to North America, you know, Newfoundland, and they made it to Iceland, of course. They made it down into Russia, or what's today Russia, and Ukraine, and North Africa. So they were everywhere. In fact, they captured Paris, I think, multiple times. I know they ransomed it once. You know, they made them pay to leave. It's like, we're here to stay until you pay us. And the French had to pay them to go. But I think they kept coming back, and they finally had to, you know, they finally repelled them from the walls of Paris. But it was a thing. But what was my point? That they got all over the place. They got as far as the Middle East. They were in Iran. They were in, you know, what is today Iran, I guess Persia then, and Baghdad, and Arabia. There's a movie a story that was made into a movie called The 13th Warrior. The story was actually Eaters of the Dead, the Michael Crichton thing. I know we talked about it a few weeks ago. We were talking about Coma or something, or another Crichton movie. We did in two Crichton things in a row, I think. But in that movie, Antonio Banderas plays, somebody from the Middle East who winds up, falling in with this Viking band and goes back to the north with them to fight these, cannibalistic primitives. So, it's not far fetched. Maybe the cannibalistic primitives, who knows? But it's not far fetched that somebody would have gone from, because the Vikings were all over the place. But I can't remember what I started out saying there, because I was thinking about something about the getting lost in the fog, the Vikings.
No, you were saying about the Vikings being everywhere. They weren't.
Oh, the Bayeux Tapestry. Yeah. I didn't think about it until today. We're getting back to it now. I didn't think about it until today. But in their travels, of course, they weren't saints, so they were mixing their blood with everybody.
Well, that's what Ragnar does when they attack the village in England.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So supposedly the Normans have Viking blood, and I'm wondering if Norman is from Norse. I'm not sure, but the Norman conquest then was in 1066. So I guess the Vikings got in there one way or another.
So what you're trying to say, Ross, is we could all have a little Viking in us.
We all do have a little Viking in us, I'm sure. I know I do. Yeah, but you're right. The movie does start out with God.
Yeah, Chris said some Vikings even made it to North America.
Right. Yeah.
Christian is now watching us on YouTube, by the way. Thanks, Christian, for supporting our YouTube channel, as well as you, Matt. And speaking of Matt, he's saying Orson. I thought it was odd when he started going on about frozen peas.
He's supposed to do a commercial for frozen peas. Yeah.
There you go.
Excuse me. But.
And Martin said, poor Harlow got it in the eye. Yeah. And Claudia said the 13th Warrior.
13th Warrior. Really good Jerry Goldsmith score. Yeah.
Jerry really got around, didn't he?
Jerry got around. Yeah. Yeah. I thought the movie could have been a little stronger. I think it must have been edited. it was one of those things where it had troubled history, and I think that some of it got chopped out, and it might have been a better movie. It had been a little longer, but still worth seeing, I guess.
Absolutely.
13th.
Yeah, and going back to the different turns the film takes, the last thing I expected to see happen to Tony Curtis was after, he pretty much, I mean, he freed Ragnar so he could die with honor. And then as a result, the evil king pretty much, took his hand off, literally. I mean, I did not see that coming.
I know. It's a nasty world, a brutal world, Roy. With Frank Thring. He barely hold the sword, and yet he took his hand down.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tragedy in Norse mythology and in the sagas. There's always blood feuds that go on between families until they wipe each other out. There are these sibling rivalries, and you got that in this movie. You got the two. They don't know that they're brothers. I mean, right from the beginning of the movie, the Kirk Douglas and Tony Curtis are basically Ragnar's sons, and yet they're on this collision course. They have this appointment with destiny where they're going to face off at the end. And it's not just Norse mythology. It happens a lot in legends and myths where you have two brothers or two friends that don't recognize one another because they're wearing strange armor or whatever, and then they fight to the death. And yeah.
Well, and that was the caveat of it, so to speak, where they were half brothers and they didn't even know it, and then they pretty much hated each other and were trying to kill each other. And I mean, and that's actually what saved Eric from Elnar. I mean, is the fact that he knew he was his brother, and Eric did not, because of when Janet Leigh told him that. And that was the hesitation. He's like looking at him, and he's seeing, like, you could tell he's like, I mean, it seemed like what they were trying to convey was that he could see Ragnar in him, and that hesitation is what cost him his life, because then Eric was able to, Tony Curtis was able to take him out then.
Yeah.
But then he's like, why did he hesitate?
Yeah.
What's that?
Nice job, Janet. But yeah, there's the cosmic irony and the fate. You can't avoid your fate and that kind of thing. The inevitability, that pessimism, but then Kirk, for being such a bad guy, Einar being such a bad guy, and everything, he still has that redemptive kind of quality. Like, he tries to force himself on Janet Leigh's character at a point, but then later, he genuinely loves her, at least within his ability. You know what I mean? Like, how much does he love her? But he doesn't assault her. You know what I mean? And the same thing with, like you said, he kind of hesitates and doesn't kill the brother. And you feel like you kind of earn that Viking funeral at the end of the movie of the character. Yeah. It's kind of like a celebration of Kirk being such a bad boy. And yet he's a good boy.
Yeah. Scott saying Ragnar certainly went out with style. Borgnine channeling his inner Brian Blessed. Yes, great analogy there, Scott. You're absolutely right.
Wow.
It's like, into the pit.
Well, Blessed essentially played a Viking when he was in Flash Gordon. Yeah.
Why did he hesitate?
Yeah, but it gives the movie that emotional resonance. There's a lot that you kind of carry around inside you at the end of the movie. If you really think about it, anyway.
At the end of the day, Ross, why can't we all just get along?
Well, they got along well enough to kick King Aiela's ass. Let's get that king. What about that battering ram? I mean, that's what should have gotten the film an R rating.
That was pretty impressive.
Worse than any of the violence was the suggestive battering ram.
That was great. I was waiting for them to do that. I was like, I know what's going to happen with this. Oh, other connections.
Yeah,
and I'm surprised Christian hasn't mentioned this yet, but I wanted to say I saw the name of the credits and right away I said, "Oh, I know who that is." So Maxine Audley was playing Queen Enid, and she was an actress that was also in Space 1999, The Last Enemy, playing Commissioner Thea. So that was kind of cool to see her in this role. Known for theater and television, and known to have perfect diction too, as well. But
and she was the one that was assaulted at the beginning of the movie.
Yes, and she
by Ragnar.
Yeah, assaulted by Ragnar.
This movie is really not like, it's not the zeitgeist. It's like, I can like it, but nobody younger than me can like this movie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, they would definitely look askew, or askance. They would look askance if they found out I liked this movie.
Exactly. Jenny said, give peace a chance. Exactly.
Peace a chance.
Jeff said, this must be really fun film. You ever saw this movie?
Yeah, we spoiled it. Yeah, you got to see it, Jeff.
Definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, absolutely. Love the axe climb in the castle battle. That was amazing. And again, it looked like Kirk was having fun with that.
It was great. That was such a great scene. Yeah, with all the boulders falling down on him and the arrows. And
I don't think that was a stunt double.
No, it was not a stunt double. Are you kidding? Kirk Douglas? No way.
Kirk's like, I'm in.
Yeah, of course he was. He was 40 when he made this film.
I know. He wasn't like in his 20s, and he's,
But that's when you live to be 103. That's what is he middle-aged yet?
Yeah, exactly.
He's still in his youth, prime of his youth.
I turned the wrong way, and I'm like cracking ribs,
I want to see you climb the battle axes, Roy. Come on, Roy, they're coming.
I can't even climb the stairs.
It'd be more like, did you ever see Robin and Marion with Sean Connery? And
I remember when that was out. I didn't see it.
And what's his name? The guy who played Merlin from Excalibur. Not Nigel. Everybody knows what it is.
Raymond?
Nicholas. Nicole Nicholson. What's his name? Nicole Williamson. Thank you.
I got nothing, Ross. I got nothing.
Yeah, Nicole Williamson is Little John, and Sean Connery is Robin Hood, and they're trying to escape. And yeah, they're probably younger. They're probably younger than Kirk Douglas was in this movie, and they're trying to get up the wall, and they're all like huffing and puffing.
Kirk Douglas is going up.
It's like, we're getting too old for this shit, the kind of thing,
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Matt, yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for trying to bail me out with Nicole Williamson. It's one of those things where it was just like kind of stuck.
It was there.
In the synapse. Yeah.
It was a short.
Kirk.
Yeah, Chris said Kirk also did the oars walking and entering the harbor. Yep. Yeah.
Right. Which was a genuine thing that the Vikings did, apparently, when they came back from a voyage. That was like a celebratory thing. This movie, at least according to Richard Fleischer, was really an accurate film as far as, they reconstructed those longboats from actual Viking plans from the Middle Ages that they had. They reconstructed these things, and they know because they had at least one of them in a museum there in Norway. So they built it to the specifications there on the blueprint, so that these three ships were actually genuine Viking longboats.
They said that they were too accurate, though, because as a result, the actors were taller than the Vikings were, I guess, at that point in time. Yeah. And they had to modify them or something.
Yeah, because when they did the oars, they were banging into each other. So they had to block up every other, hole for the oars, so that they wouldn't be on top of one another. So they actually had half the people rowing that they would have had in the authentic boat, but everything else was to the specifications. And the same thing with the village that they built there in Hardanger. All of that was historically accurate. But I want to know about that horn, though.
That they drank out of.
they took it from Babe the Blue Ox, I think. The one the guy was. It's like, I want to see the size of this steer that they got.
It was huge.
I have to assume that was made out of like some kind of, other material and not actually animal. But
we hope.
Yeah. What was the other thing that was accuracy. There's the longboats, there was the village, there was shot at the fjords. We said it was on location.
Yep.
Oh, the fact that they didn't have the horned helmets.
Right,
Apparently
because the
that
Vikings were
was,
known for that, but they really
Yeah.
didn't. That's like an inconsistency with history, though, right?
yeah, supposedly that was a later invention that they had the horned helmets.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of Viking mythology that sprang up in the 18th and 19th centuries, and I guess Wagner probably didn't help, you know, because everybody had the horned helmets and the wings on the helmets and stuff. Yeah.
Right.
The Viking funeral was accurate. And the die with the sword in the hand is may have been accurate. They're not sure if the Vikings were speaking metaphorically, like that you would die in battle, you know, gloriously in battle, or if you had to have the sword in your hand. But I remember when I had that mythology class, that was taught to us that, yeah, they're supposed to die with the sword in their hand to get into Valhalla. Where they
Yeah,
can,
and again, that's almost like the Trek connection, so to speak, with the Klingons.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Where the Klingons always wanted to die in battle.
Gloriously in battle, sure.
Yeah. So.
And then if they do get into Valhalla, that means they get to fight all day and wench, and then they drink their mead, and then in the morning they get up again and their wounds are all healed and they can do it all over again. So, and that's kind of their Norse heaven.
Some would say, well, that's heaven, and then there's others that would say that's purgatory.
But supposedly, even though it's Norse heaven, as I recall with Ragnarok, I think even that came to an end. I think everything just went up in flames, and then it was flooded. And I think there was a possibility of like a new beginning, like 2 people survive or something and repopulate the earth, like the Adam and Eve thing. But I'm not sure about that. Yeah. It seems too optimistic for the Vikings that there'd be anything left.
Decimation. That's the only way.
It's the only way.
Chris said a holy mammoth tusk they found.
Yeah, maybe.
I blame Vaughn for the helmets.
Vaughn.
Wagner or Wagner?
Wagner, maybe.
Yeah. Wagner.
His spear and magic helmet.
Beowulf,
right. But I got a sense of that from the structures. Dying in battles what mattered. I got a sense of that from the way the structures were kind of built. Every depiction that we've ever seen of Beowulf has kind of the same huts, with the big kind of hovels that they've got with the runes around the door and everything, and the little dragon heads and stuff.
Yeah, and they went out of their way to display those, especially in the opening credits when they were with the narration too, with Orson. With Orson Welles,
with the Bayeux Tapestry, which as I said, kind of didn't have anything to do. Well, tangentially had to do with the Vikings, but it was fun the way they did it. That they used it. I think Beowulf was he Danish though? He was the Danes, I think. Oh, Hrothgar, the guy who goes to help out as king of the Danes. But I guess it was all the same back then. They didn't have the borders that they have now. Your people, Roy, the Swedes.
The Swedes, yeah. It was funny because I went to a conference last night, and it was kind of within the Lehigh Valley. I was telling you about it, and actually I came across one person that I actually met. Everybody's exchanging their business cards and everything. It was pretty much a networking type of an event, and this one guy that I met, his name was David, and he, when he saw my name, he's like, "Oh," he goes, "Is that Swedish?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "My ancestry is too." And then we got into this whole discussion about that, and then it was just kind of interesting because of the Scandinavia and the Vikings and everything and what have you. So all roads lead to the Vikings.
Should have worn a horned helmet tonight, Roy.
I should have, Ross.
I thought about it, but I figured I could save it for Halloween.
There you go.
The success of this. You go. Ahead. No, you go. No, you.
I insist. You. The success.
The director.
I was going to say the director, Richard Fleischer. I mean, his credits are longer than both of our arms put together.
And you know what? It's crazy, because he did 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and he did Fantastic Voyage. So he has his genre cred. And later he did Soylent Green.
Yep. Sherry's movie.
But he did stuff in all genres. In fact, what's crazy is I was just at Princeton Record Exchange this week, You know, all these green tags you see behind me, those are price tags from Princeton Record Exchange. But I was there this week, and what do I see on the end cap? But one of my favorite noir movies, The Narrow Margin. This is the one where you have Charles McGraw and you have Marie Windsor, and Charles McGraw plays the disgruntled detective, and his partner asks him, "So what do you think of her?" Because she's in a mob mall, Marie Windsor, and he goes, "She's a 60-cent special, a 60-cent special. Yeah, cheap, slick, and all poison under the gravy." So I love this movie. But anyway, the director is Richard Fleischer. And my buddy Paul, he goes home like the next day, and what comes in the mail? But he got the Conan box with the Conan the Destroyer in it. Again, Richard Fleischer. His stuff is still speaking to at least our generation. People are still buying and watching his movies. He was the son of Max Fleischer, the animator, the guy who did Betty Boop and Popeye.
Yes,
Superman.
yes, yep, of course.
The old Superman,
Yeah, the Fleischers.
The Fleischer brothers. Yeah. I keep forgetting he's the son of Max Fleischer. It's crazy. But for all of his big movies, then he did toward the end of his life, like I said, Conan the Destroyer, Red Sonja. He did the remake of The Jazz Singer with Neil Diamond and Amityville 3D. So
yeah, I saw that.
They weren't all, but I mean, come on. I mean, he swung for the fence. He got 20,000 Leagues. He's got Fantastic Voyage. He's got Soylent Green. He did
a lot of. Think about it, Ross. He did a lot of sci-fi, or he did a lot of fantasy type films.
He did Dr. Dolittle.
Dr. Dolittle in 66, 67, I think that came out.
Yeah, which apparently there's a lot of funny stories about that. He wrote a book. I think somebody posted about it on your Facebook page, but there was no way I could get my hands on it before we did the show. But I'm sure he has a lot of funny stories about Rex Harrison and the giant snail.
Yes.
And he also did Tora, the Pearl Harbor movie. But yeah, he did a lot of stuff that we've seen and still think about. Boston Strangler. Yeah. With Tony Curtis.
The Prince and the Pauper, I think he did.
Oh, right. Later,
late 70s.
Yeah. Right. Which for some reason I always think is Richard Lester, because it was in the wake of all of it was kind of like that revival of the goofy swashbuckler, like Three Musketeers, post the Michael York Three Musketeers,
right?
The half swashbuckler, half comedy kind of thing. Yeah,
but it's crazy though. These movies that we're talking about, they seem to me like on some levels that they weren't that long ago. But these films are like 40, 50 years ago now.
I know, it's horrifying. Yeah,
I really. I don't know if Catherine's still out there, but when she was commenting earlier on, she was commenting on the show's page. I think it'd be really interesting to discuss about these older films and just about the perception of seeing these films, back in the day, devoting a special episode to it. I think that would be a lot of fun to kind of to tackle something like that.
I'm always up for, even if it's just sitting around some bar somewhere, I'm always up for talking movies. Let's do it.
Hey, Dan's out there. Dan, thanks for joining. He's saying, I have a beer hat you can borrow. For the Vikings.
See, even the Vikings didn't think of that.
No, they did not.
You'd be like a god for them. Yeah.
Martin's saying I also blame Bugs Bunny.
Right.
The Hague, his people.
Yeah, his people, right.
And then Chris, wasn't he also involved in the 40s Superman cartoons?
Yeah, the Max Fleischer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These movies are so good that they would stand the test of time. Absolutely, Chris.
Yeah.
And these movies, Ross and I were just talking about this yesterday. I mean, a lot of the stuff is coming up, like we're coming into like the 100th year of these films too.
Yeah, not this particular one, but yeah, we're going to start getting into the 100th anniversary of the classics. I mean, we're already there with the silent movies.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Not to rush things, but
we're coming up on Kong.
Yeah, 39 or
33.
33. Oh, geez.
Yeah, we're coming up on it fast.
You always count on that. That would be great to do a classic movie night, guys. Yeah, no, I think we're definitely going to do that, Chris. But breaking out of our sci-fi elements, although it almost feels like sci-fi discussing these movies.
I'm hanging on to this one as a sci-fi.
You really are, aren't you?
It's
Take
not
care.
strictly sci-fi, but I think they're fantasy. Oh,
Yeah, there's
Martin's gotta
definitely
go.
fantasy elements.
Take
Take
care,
care,
Martin.
Martin. Have a good week. Thanks for joining.
I was just going to say the success of the film because it was a success. It was one of these
Mhm.
things where even if the critics didn't, if somebody didn't like it, they always had to say something positive about it because it was so striking. You know,
Right.
they thought maybe the adventure, the story might have been mundane, and they expected more from the story or what have you. But it was just such a uh, you know visual feast, and there were no corners cut, and they admired the Viking ships and everything. So everybody had something positive to say about it. It did make money. Um, there was a spin-off television series apparently that Kirk Douglas did produce that was out at the time, and it had guest stars like Christopher Lee and Patrick McGowan, if you can imagine them. And I guess Christopher Lee would do anything, but Patrick McGowan in a Viking episode. I have to look for that one. But there were movies that were made that were in response to this. That somebody mentioned the Long Ships earlier. Um,
Yep. With
that
Richard Whitmore.
right. That was made. Mario Bava, your favorite, isn't he? The guy
Oh,
that played
sure.
the
The
vampires?
Italian director.
Yeah, is he the Planet of the Vampires guy?
He is. Yep.
Yeah. Well, he did Eric the Conqueror, which is another Viking movie. It was a thing. Yeah, whenever there's a hit, everybody's got to get in on it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's when the remakes or the variations start coming out. It's like, if this was successful, it's well, look at Star Wars. It's like after Star Wars,
Star
sci-fi. It changed sci-fi history in the sense that everybody was trying to cash in on it because it's like, okay, if this is a mega hit, look what we can do now.
I think I mentioned this before on the show for some reason, but The Long Ships was supposedly based on a book by Franz Bankston, but the movie bears no relation that I can see to the book, really. This was one of the most fun reads that I've had in like the last 2 years. So if anybody wants to read this book, they're gonna have a good time. If you guys like Vikings, it's a really wry, funny adventure, and I highly recommend it.
Very cool.
Just shares the name of the movie, and it was based on the book, but has nothing to do with the book.
Gotcha. That's funny. Claudia commented, she said, as Bill Mooney says, time is a strange river, which it is. But regarding music, we were talking about the music earlier, and he knocked it out of the park. For sure.
Yeah, Mario Nascimbene, who's one of the best-known Italian film composers. I mean, everybody knows Ennio Morricone. Nascimbene's probably, if anybody knows more than one Italian composer, if you're not a spaghetti Western buff, this is probably the only other Italian film composer anybody kind of remembers because he scored so many movies. He wrote at least 150 film scores, and
wow,
and a number of them for big features here in the United States. His first score was in 1941, but here he kind of became like the poor man's Miklos Rozsa. Like if they couldn't get Miklos Rozsa to score an epic, they always got Mario Nascimbene to come in and do it. He did Barabbas, which is not a surprise because Fleischer directed it, but he did Solomon and Sheba with Yul Brynner and Gina Lollobrigida. He did 1 Million Years BC, which the Raquel Welch, thing that we talked about. He did, what was the other epic? The Solomon and Sheba. Oh, he did an Alexander the Great, not the Shatner one though. It was the Richard Burton one.
It's funny you mentioned the Shatner one, Ross. I've actually got a copy of that.
Yeah, I think it's on YouTube. I still haven't seen it. I want to, I want to make a point to see it because it has a great cast.
It does. I mean, yeah.
And he talks about it in that show that he did, that
right.
one show. So, but Nascimbene was distinguished for bringing in some instruments that you wouldn't always think of in conjunction with an orchestra, like the jaw harp and the harmonica. He kind of predated Morricone with some of that stuff. For as brilliant as Morricone was, he took it to a whole other level. But Nash and Benny was kind of doing some of that stuff maybe 10 years before Morricone was. He just never really achieved the fame of Ennio Morricone. He died in 2002, 1913 to 2002. He lived. Yeah. Well, you got to go sometime.
This is true.
Yeah.
But he really, I mean, I can't believe he contributed that many to that many films, though. That's amazing, though. Or film scores.
Well, yeah. What was amazing was the fact that he made a living at it, because there were a lot of composers in Italy who wrote film scores, like anywhere except the United States. In the United States, you're either a concert composer or you're a film composer. And sometimes it's like a little bit of crossover, like some famous composer will go write a film score. It's a big deal. Mm-hmm. But, you know, in England, it was not unusual for the big composers to work in film because they had to make money, you know. But Nash and Benny exclusively, like when he graduated from conservatory, he did some concert works. But as soon as he got into film in 1941, it's like, oh, I can make some money at this. And he just did that. It was like kind of like what Miklos Rozsa did. It was the same thing. You know, he was starving in Paris, and then he talked to Arthur Honegger, who was also a concert composer. He said, "How do you live?" He said, "Well, I score films." It's like, oh, how do you do that?
It's like giving candy to a child.
Yeah, suddenly you can pay your rent, and you can eat 3 meals a day. Sure, I'll do that. And you get to do what you love. So
yeah, well, that's the important thing right there. That sums it up.
Yeah.
The Hague said it's really good. Also,
nice work if you can get it.
Yeah. But no, thanks for that, Ross. That was good. In regards to, I just wanted to show a couple other scenes from the film, and we were talking about the view, and it's just breathtaking. Coming through in the channel, and then there's the castle. Right. And that castle was
it, where was it? Was it in Normandy or somewhere? Was it in France?
I think it was in France.
Yeah. If
I remember correctly.
Yeah. I didn't think it was in England, right?
Yeah, no. But years ago we went to France, and the castles, I mean, that Shari and I saw there, I mean, it was so breathtaking. I mean, it was just absolutely amazing. The architecture. I mean, by comparison, the U.S. is just like such a young country. But when you think about all the history that's over there in Europe, and it's been so well preserved for the most part, and it's just incredible.
We need more wolf pits here in the U.S. Now, in the saga, it was interesting to learn that when Ayala gets his comeuppance, he doesn't get pushed into the wolf pit, because there is no wolf pit. It's a viper pit when Ragnar goes nobly. Right. What they do is they give him the blood eagle. Is what the sons get him, and they give him the blood eagle. Now, the blood eagle is when you separate the rib cage from somebody's backbone, and then you rip their lungs out and leave them out like wings.
My God, Ross. Here come the suits, Ross.
What, that would have been so satisfying had they done that to Frank Thring at the end, don't you think? People would get on their feet.
He was just an evil character.
Yeah.
I think him meeting his fate with the wolves was good enough, though, don't you think?
I want to see him get the blood eagle.
Is that in the deleted scenes, Ross?
I don't know. It's in the saga. Makes you want to read the sagas, doesn't it?
Yeah, there you go. It would have been interesting if there had been a sequel to this movie, though, don't you think?
Yeah. You think Tony Curtis would still be wearing his short shorts? Whose decision was that? Yeah.
If it had been shot maybe the following year, he probably would have been.
Whose decision was that? Do you think Kirk did that to him?
He probably knew that Spartacus was right around the corner. So
yeah. It's the most demeaning outfit in the movie.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Like
Yeah.
he managed to maintain his composure. Tony
Yeah,
Curtis.
they both did very well, and they really conducted the film. I mean, the acting was really good.
I liked when he's going to get eaten by the crabs.
Yeah, right. He's like Odin.
Yeah, another nasty bit of the film.
Matt's saying in the sequel he's wearing his cowboy hat.
It's a big hat. Get it?
Yeah. Careful, he might persuade you otherwise. Do you remember him being in The Persuaders, Ross, with Roger Moore?
I've never seen it.
No, really?
Not that, to my knowledge. I've never seen The Persuaders. I got to see it.
Yeah, it was early '70s ITC, ITV production.
Right.
So Lou grade.
Yeah.
Scott just said, "Yeah, this very true, Scott." And it's interesting that they were like only a month and a half apart in age.
Yeah.
Borgnine and Kirk Douglas, yet he's playing his father.
Douglas was older. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, Douglas died at 103. Borgnine made it to 95. I thought he was going to hit 100. He looked great.
We saw Ernest Borgnine at Chiller.
Yeah.
I think Vince went up to him and got his. I think Vince met him a few times, got his autograph. I unfortunately did not, but he was great with the fans though, and he was. And this was probably. What year did you say that he died?
I don't recall. It wasn't that long ago. Within the last 10 years. Yeah.
He was. I'm trying to remember. I think he was probably. It was probably like 2012. I think he was there, and it was probably passed away just a couple of years after that. Yeah, Ernest Borgnine passed away in 2017, and I think it was in 12. It was, I think, 11 or 12, because what happened was I think Martin Landau was at the same convention, and what I was doing was I was asking him about appearing at one of the events, and Ernest Borgnine was on the other side of the wall, if I remember correctly. So yeah, he was mingling in his late 80s, early 90s. So. But yeah, Chris said he loved The Persuaders. Yeah, sadly, it was only 24 episodes. It only went for one season. But yeah, and they said the water was freezing too when they filmed that.
Yeah. I guess Douglas was running on the oars, and he slipped at a point and fell in, and Fleischer was like terrified.
Yeah,
but he was cool with it. Yeah.
Chris said Borgnine's last role was in the movie Red.
Really? He was in that. Yeah.
Not to be confused with Reds. You remember that movie?
No. Red was the one with Morgan Freeman and Helen Mirren and everybody, right? The older agents or whatever they were. I didn't see it.
I didn't see that either. Reds was with Warren Beatty.
Warren Beatty, yeah.
80. I think that came out in 81. I think that was the first time I went to a movie in the 80s. Actually, anytime, actually. And that was with Easton Eric. And then they actually had an intermission, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, see, that's horrifying, because for me, that movie, that was like yesterday, seeing that movie for me.
Yeah, it's 43 years ago.
It's a very long time ago. It was a very, very long time ago, but I can almost viscerally remember sitting there and watching that movie with Easton Eric. Yeah,
crazy. Mr. Records Keeper. So anyway, folks, if you have any last minute comments, one last photo before we do that. Looking to the light.
Are you trying to attract the chat girls? Is it time?
Anyway, is the final scene of the movie
there you go.
Yeah,
Viking funeral.
I read that Fleischer actually, I guess he wanted, when they actually first started doing it, they wanted to just shoot like one round of arrows out, and then after that, then they were shooting multiple hours. So it was almost to make it, as a tradition, very traditionalized. And
I think when he did the count, they did a rehearsal, and then when he did the count when they were shooting, somebody shot on 2 instead of 3 when he counted to 3. So that's why that one arrow hits before the others do. But it was one of those happy accidents. He was thinking on his feet, and he just said, instead of saying cut, he says go with it, because it looked like it was done on purpose. like ritualistically.
Yeah.
Seeing that, it reminds me that we've got to do Excalibur at some point, because that also has the ship going off into the sunset at the end.
Yeah, it's appropriate. Thanks, Chris. We appreciate that. We're glad you enjoyed this.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for stopping by.
I said, thank you guys. This was fun and a great change of pace. Yeah, we'll definitely do these one-offs. They just won't be one-offs. We're expanding. We're expanding our horizons.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I'm going to go to the shout outs. And folks, if you have any last minute comments, please come back, or actually please post them. And stand by, and I'm going to share the screen, and we're going to our shout outs, bringing you creative awareness through our shout outs. So I want to give a shout out to Mike and Mary Beth on Sci-Fi Distilled. They are on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and they discuss 80s, 90s, and beyond. This coming Wednesday, actually, I got the wrong slide there, so I will tell you what they are doing. Whoops, that was an oops.
It's the Vikings.
What's that?
They're doing the Vikings.
They're doing the Vikings?
Yeah.
No, actually, what they are covering is they're covering. We're watching it, and we recommend that you do too. So that is what they are discussing. They were actually.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ross.
No, it's the flip side of what they did the week before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Because they watched it so you won't have to, kind of thing.
Exactly.
So this time they're watching it because. Give it again, Roy.
No, you said it, Ross. You got it. Actually,
I got nothing left, Roy.
You got nothing left?
I got nothing left.
Oh, no. Sure you do, Ross.
You got a little bit left.
In case you don't, there we go. We got it. We watched, and you should too. Take number 2.
Okay. All right. So it's recommended. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Wednesday, February 28th, 2024. And the fact is, how the heck is it the end of February this coming Wednesday? That makes no sense.
I know. And it's a leap year, Roy.
Yeah. So actually, you gained an extra day. So Thursday will be the 29th, and then Friday will be March 1st. But it's still the end of the month next week. So check out Mike and Mary Beth, Sci-Fi Distilled, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next, I want to give a shout out to Bill Scarrato at Countrygate Playhouse and Countrygate Players, my friend Bill. And Countrygate is back for the 2024 season. If you want information about Countrygate, you can go to www.countrygate.org. You can also visit Bill's website, which is www.billscarrato.com. And also, I am a genius with the slides tonight. So just so everybody knows, I am on point with the slides tonight. And the reason I am on point and batting 1,000 is because I had 2 PowerPoints opened, and this caused a disturbance in the force, which caused me not to have the correct slides as I ramble through this and actually try to get to be where I need to be, all under 1/32 of a second. And just as I am about to hit the right buttons and share, boom!
It's like working
magic.
There you go.
But you see, it's extra airtime, it's extra advertising, so the point is getting across.
Don't worry. I've done that many times in radio. It's amazing what you can think to talk about. Yeah.
It's fun to have fun, and that's what's fun about it. Don't you think that's fun, Ross?
It's a blast.
Anyway, I will take 2 on that. Countrygate Players is going to be doing The Odd Couple. Now, if you are in the Belvedere, Harmony area, if you're in the Phillipsburg, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area, tryouts are actually this Tuesday, February 27th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, open auditions, have a monologue prepared. If you go to the website, actually, and go to the link, you will see that you can click on a form that needs to be filled out prior to actually the auditions. But anyway, it's coming up. And interesting enough, I mean, I'll tell you something. I stay away from musicals because I can't sing. I can't sing to save my life. So with that said, this would be a fun show to do. And ironically enough, there is a characters in this show named Roy and Vinny. Go figure.
Uh,
Besides Oscar and Felix, and then there's
Mm.
Murray the cop, and then there's the Pigeon Sisters, and then there's one other character, and I'm another character I'm missing and I'm forgetting. So I believe it's 6 males and 2 females. So anyway, Country Gate will be showing The Odd Couple. It's going to be Saturday, April 26th, and April 20th and 21st, Saturday and Sunday. And then for the second weekend, it's going to be Saturday, April 27th and 28th. So definitely check that out. Captain Phil's Planet. Captain Phil is on WUSB 90.1 FM, Stony Brook, New York. The captain schedule is on Friday nights from 9 to 11:30 p.m. You can check them out on internet radio. Also, we want to give a shout out to Trek Talking, a Star Trek podcast. We thank them for their support. You can check them out on Facebook. And again, it's Trek Talking. And also just a shout out in regards to the Eagle Obsession. It was formerly The Eagle Has Landed. This is the documentary my friend Jeffrey Morris is working on. And if you want to check out for information and the progress of the film, you can go to www.eagledocumentary.com. And this is currently in production. Also want to give a shout out to Martha at Studio One Thrift. And Martha's email address for Studio One Thrift is, not email, the website is www.studioonethrift.com. Make sure you register because then you will get styling tips and then you can check out the lineup of clothes and you can also order. And there's stylish clothes for both men and women. And also the clothing is very good. So definitely check that out. Also want to give a shout out to my friend Warren. And Warren is heading up the Space 1999 convention that is taking place in London. And this is for the 50th anniversary celebration. This will be in September, from September 11th through the 17th of this year. For updates, you can go to www.space199950years.com. And then Ross, if you can let everybody know what you've got going on.
I forgot I had this obligation. These are the three shows I've got on KWAX, recorded shows. Picture Perfect's the movie music show. That's on right now. Probably entering its last half hour at this point. 8 o'clock here on the East Coast, 5 o'clock on the West Coast where the show originates. Actually, I recorded right here. Sweetness and Light is my light music show. That's tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock Eastern, or 8 o'clock out there on the West Coast. This is the second of two-part show about Black History Month, light music by Black composers. I don't know if any of them be recognizable. Duke Ellington's on there, but just classical composers mainly. The Lost Chord tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern. That's unusual and neglected classical music. And what's tomorrow? What did I choose to do tomorrow? I can't remember. I submit these things in advance now, so yeah. I totally forgot what I'm doing. But anyway, you can listen and tell me.
God, we're crashing and burning tonight with the shout outs, Ross.
Yeah, it was what the hell am I doing? You know why? Because I had a couple of choices and I can't remember what I went with because I had recorded. It was a rerun of a show I'd done before, so I can't remember what the hell I did, what I said them. But anyway, there it is. Enjoy it. And so the URL is there, the KWAX, and I promote these things on my Facebook page at Classic Ross Amico. So yeah, there you go. So if you're curious, if I don't know what I'm doing right now, it'll be on my Facebook page tomorrow morning with all the info.
That's okay, Ross. But thank you though.
Yeah, what the hell was it? Because I was going to do Handel. Today's Handel's birthday, but I changed it. It's not Handel. So I don't remember what I changed it to. Yeah, put that up again. That'll help.
Anyway, to let everybody know, so Sunday, I will be on. I was just talking about Jeffrey Mars. Jeffrey will be joining, and that'll be Sunday, February 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this will be episode number 222, not to be confused with room 222. And we will be talking about the Eagle Obsession. So Jeffrey will be joining us this Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So looking forward to talking to Jeffrey about the documentary and the progression of that. So we hope that you'll be able to join us then. But no, you'll be posting it on your Facebook page, Ross.
Yeah,
and
nobody cares anyway.
Yeah.
Jerry Goldsmith did the music for Room 222, by the way.
Did he really?
Of course, he did everything.
Wow.
Jerry Goldsmith. Well, talking about music now. Now, this is a recently recorded soundtrack, re-recorded. Mario Nash and Benny's music for this film. It's a great recording of it. Only came out a couple of years ago. I don't see a copyright date on it. Presumably it's 2018. So it was recorded a few years ago. Before that, this is the one that was available. This is the one that has the actual music as heard in the film.
Oh, cool.
But this is I recommend that one.
Gotcha.
The Vikings. See, it's got the dragon boat right there. Yeah. Good stuff.
I think it's safe to say that you like the Vikings, Ross.
Love the Vikings. Love that movie.
Nah, it was definitely a great pick by you. So.
Oh well, thank you.
Good job. Good job
with that. Thanks for, finally, succumbing to the Vikings.
Thanks for looking into the light. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Chris says I will have to pick that up. Pick up the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's awesome.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, anyway, folks, we got through our shout outs. That I apologize for that. We just kind of tripped all over everything, but we got through it. So, and just so you know, too, if you're planning ahead, just to let everybody know now, Ross and I will not be back next weekend. So we're actually going to be taking a break next weekend because I'm going to be in a murder mystery production with these folks that are in the picture, and we're going to be doing the show Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So Ross and I will not be back until March 8th, which will be a Friday night. So we will let you know what we're going to be covering at that time. I'm not sure yet, but so there will be no show next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which would be March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
Oh, it's left-hand piano music.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing Paul Wittgenstein, the composer or the pianist who lost his right arm in the First World War. So I'm doing pieces that were written for him.
Nice.
What a nice story.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the Blood Eagle, Roy. But first, we'll have you do your performances. I don't want to
thank you.
I don't want to do that to Bill.
Bill will appreciate that. And Chris said, Roy, I hope you kill it. Anyway, folks, wishing you a wonderful rest of the evening, wonderful Saturday, and look forward to seeing you on Sunday. And as we always like to say, live long and prosper. Or what would the Vikings say, Ross?
Odin!
Anyway, have a good weekend, folks. See you Sunday.